We're live.
Okay, everybody, welcome to House Education on Friday, February 7th, 2025. Apologies for the late start to everybody. We got to start remembering that our floor time can actually start increasing more and more, and we can't just jump back here. We're going to start right in. This morning, we're going to be hearing from our state college system as well as our university, and to really get a sense of their status today and their budget request for the upcoming fiscal year. And first up is the interim president of UVM, Patty Praylock. Welcome.
Yeah.
And it's first time for us.
This group, I've been to education before, but
yes,
a few years back. Yeah.
Well, welcome.
Thank
welcome
you.
To our committee room.
Yes, I know. It was a maze to find. Well, thank you so much for the opportunity. I am Patty Praylock, and I'm honored and privileged to serve in my current role as the interim president of the University of Vermont. Previously, I served as the provost and senior vice president for about 5.5 years. And prior to that, I was the dean of the College of Nursing and Health Sciences for 10 years. I am an active researcher in autism and work with children, adolescents, and adults who have neurodevelopmental disabilities and specifically autism. And I still teach and have doctoral students and undergraduate students, which is why I'm in the field for 30 years. So thanks for the opportunity to speak. So I wanted to let you know the university is thriving and doing well, and we appreciate your contribution to our continued success. We continue to attract and retain the most talented Vermonters, and in the last 2 years, we've actually seen an increase in Vermonters who have been enrolled at UVM. Currently, there are about 3,664 Vermont students who are attending UVM, which is about 25% of our cohort, and 1,014 graduated this past spring in 2014. As I am a first-gen student, 19% of our Vermont students are first-generation students. More than graduated and entered the workforce in 2024, and 4,400 of all of our students have entered the Vermont workforce since 2020. Access and affordability continues to be a priority for us. Our UVM Promise, as you know, ensures that Vermonters from households making less than $100,000 pay no tuition at UVM. That is an increase from the $75,000 that we had a year before, and more than half of Vermont households are eligible for the UVM Promise. UVM, as you know, is also an economic engine for the state. More than 37,000 alumni live and work in the state of Vermont. And our direct and indirect economic impact is more than 1.3 billion. I do want to talk a little bit about our Vermont undergraduates, just so you understand. Not only do we have about half of households are eligible for the 100,000 UVM Promise that allows them no tuition, but 46% of our Vermont undergraduates also attend tuition free because of direct financial support, and 91% of all of our Vermont students receive scholarships or financial aid. The other thing that's important to me is our retention and progression and graduation rate. Vermonters actually are retained at a higher rate than our entire population. They're at 93%. We're at about 90%. My goal is to get the whole institution at 92%, but our Vermonters are at 93%. And our graduation rate in 4 years is 70%, which is significant when the national average is in the 44, 52%. And we're in the top 5% of land-grant institutions and universities in higher ed that graduate in 4 years at that rate. A lot of people look at they can get jobs and that they don't increase their tuition challenges. As you know, we have a wonderful Office of Engagement. It's really UVM's front door that has fully engaged Vermont leaders and innovators in all 14 counties of the state. So we're supporting things like 4-H development, agriculture and rural development, telehealth programs, preventative care and wellness, clearly with our new tech hub efforts with the entire state involved, the Gallium nitride efforts to really create semiconductors is another piece that we are really supporting. And then we have a lot of STEM outreach for the K through 12, and that's just to name a few. All of our extension groups are doing some incredible work with our farmers and as well as our young students, encouraging them to pathways to education. Most recently, I've been working with my colleagues and leadership at CCV, Vermont Tech, Norwich, and Vermont State University to collaborate on all the nursing programs in the state to address our nursing shortage. We realized that we need to graduate about 9,000 nurses in the next 10 years, and we're only at about 500 a year. So the math does not add up. And we realize that there are strengths and challenges that each of us have. So we had a pretty significant retreat with all the leaders, presidents, provosts, chancellors, and the leaders of the nursing program. And we're looking at a way to build a nursing consortium and build economies of scale and grow the numbers of nurses that we can train, expand instructional delivery that allows students to work, creating new pathways for career changers, share expertise in clinical simulation, and research. I'm very excited about that initiative. Some low-hanging fruit is looking at our admissions criteria across the board. Some programs have certified simulation programs, others do not. We can help support that. We even have some interest by Middlebury and St. Michael's who do not have undergraduate ways to graduate education where they learn in their first year nursing programs, they have a bachelor's degree in something else, get a master's degree in 2 years, but in the first year they take their NCLEX and are able to practice immediately. And the healthcare costs for us, that's a huge issue. As we know, a lot of our traveler nurses that are needed are a high cost for the community. So the other thing I wanted to just share with you is we have a university-wide planetary health initiative, which helps people live healthier lives. It's an initiative that motivates in our careful stewardship of nature, and it's an initiative that distinguishes us from other institutions. Our focus is really to integrate and advance our research, our educational programs, policy support, clinical practice, and community outreach in planetary health at a local, state, regional, and global level. Ultimately, our goal is a vision for a healthy people and healthy planet. Just to give you some UVM examples of planetary health research that's going on, and to let you know, we are collaborating with the Vermont Public Health Association, the Vermont Prosperity Project, UVM Health Network, and UVM Medical Center. And I would love to continue through our Office of Engagement and our Leahy Institute for Rural partnerships, where they're doing a lot of work in this area as well. So our Complex Systems Center in the College of Education and College of Engineering and Mathematical Sciences is examining students' time in nature, and they're seeing a reduction in their stress level and their blood pressure that's actually greater than observed when people go to therapy or do exercise. Just being out in nature is quite powerful. The Larner College of Medicine is looking at the impact of forest fires on childhood asthma, as well as the impact of flooding on access to healthcare. In our Rubenstein School for the Environment and Natural Resources, we're looking at the importance of the nature where they data. The College of Arts and Sciences and our extension programs are exploring wetlands and water quality, the impact of algae blooms on human exposure to disease. In the College of Agriculture and Life Sciences, we're examining the impact of climate change on malnutrition. And our Gund Institute is really focusing on the value of forests and food security and nutrition, knowing that forests provide increased food security, and nutrition, increased well-being, and edible products that we all like fruits, leaves, nuts, seeds, mushrooms, and honey. So for us, planetary health is a policy message that conserving nature is a and deliver health benefits. My goal this year is just to educate and engage the state in our planetary health effort and work collaboratively in the coming year to really address some of your areas of concern in health, water, pollution, food systems, childcare, housing. They're all related. So to conclude, I thought I would just share our financial asks for this year. Your previous support has really allowed us to directly invest in Vermont student scholarships, agriculture, and extension education, as well as the College of Medicine. And this year we have 3 primary asks. The first is, as you saw in Governor Scott's budget, there was a 3% increase to our base funding. This allows us to continue our investment in Vermont students and the state of Vermont related to agriculture, extension, and medicine. We're also asking for 2 one-time funds. The first is the $1 million ask for the Tech Hub. As you heard, we just received $23 million. But the university is just providing the pass-through that really will support an economic engine for communities. The $1 million from the state would be matched by Global Foundries to assist Vermont companies who want to get started in gallium nitride technologies, and this will help us with both economic and workforce development. From an education perspective, it also allows the university to provide educational training for workers in manufacturing, use of semiconductors, and work with our College of Engineering. The second ask is a $5 million ask over 5 years, $1 million per year for the Vermont Cancer Center Initiative. And this is where we're really trying to address cancer disease facing our rural communities. And Vermont, interestingly, we have a higher percent of cancer in rural communities in the area of melanoma, lung cancer, and breast cancer. And so their focus is really to support that effort in rural communities and to help us achieve NCI designation, which puts us with a top percentage of cancer centers, gives us more funding so that we can address the challenges in rural communities. And finally, Wendy Koenig, my partner in support here, is available to assist you at any time or to reach me when needed, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much. First of all, the numbers of nearly half Vermonters attending UVM tuition free is really quite impressive and amazing. UVM had held the line on tuition increases for a number of years, despite pretty big increases in inflation. That I assume that UVM has had to backtrack on that a little bit.
Yeah. So this year we went 6 years without increasing tuition for Vermonters. And so what we decided to do, we had to increase our out-of-state tuition this year, but not Vermonters. This coming year in the future, it will be a 2% increase, but it'll be a 4.5% for out-of-state students. But it's a small amount. It also recognizes that for us to continue to provide the quality education we want and the buildings and the residential halls that we want, we cannot continue not to increase tuition, but my goal is always to keep it lower than out of state and at a reasonable level. And that's why we decided to increase households of 75,000.
And when was that change made?
That was made this past year. Yeah. Good question.
Committee questions?
I had a question, not to decide whether or not to fund you, but I'm just looking at your data. And is that percentage of students that are Vermont students attending UVM typical of most state universities for the percentage of students from that state that attend their state university?
It's a really important question, and the answer is no, that's not typical. We are the flagship state institution. Usually it's the reverse. but we don't have enough students. So if we think about in 2010, we graduated about 7,200 seniors. In 2020, it was about 5,100. So there was a 25% decrease. We also know that a little less than half of our students who graduate go to college. And so this is why we are a public institution, but a lot of times we feel like we're functioning in this river of public-private because we cannot survive without out-of-state students, and we're allowed to provide support for in-state students because of our out-of-state students. And it's usually larger populous organizations. The one thing we have done, though, are enrollment managers of the Vermont state universities, our university and CCV are meeting, and they're trying to figure out a way, since we don't typically compete for the same students, how can we really support young people to make a decision about a pathway to college that makes sense for them. And so it's the first time in the last 2 years they've been working closely together to really say our goal is to educate our students, whether it's a 2-year degree, a certification in a particular area, or a pathway to a master's degree, or a pathway to UVM. We're going to figure out how to do that together so we can increase the number of Vermonters who actually go to college and then have a job and come back to Vermont. And, you know, as the governor said, it would be nice to have young people here who then create families, then create an economic environment that is fruitful. So giving them options, we see that as part of our own.
Representative Brady.
It's right along the same theme. I would love to hear updates, or for our committee maybe to get a more detailed update of that work that's happening as we look at K-12 transformation. I think you're pointing to a really important indicator of our system, which is the percentage of students who go on to higher education. It's, in my opinion, as a high school teacher, too low.
Right.
And I don't think we can expect K-12 alone to solve it. And I worry sometimes we're pretty siloed. And so I'm very interested in learning more about it and thinking creatively about, if we're in this moment of kind of transition for our K-12 system, how are we better leveraging and working with collaboratively our K-12 and our higher education system, particularly our land grant university.
Yeah, I think it's a really important question, and that's why, you know, our nursing consortium is one effort, and letting students see there's a possibility here. Someone asked me, could we do that with education as well? And we absolutely could. And our dean of the College of Education and Social Services is totally responsive to that. So creating consortiums across the state and creating pathways for students. We have a pretty significant robotics program for our K-12. And so we're trying to get them to see the possible pathways, but we can continue to bring data to you about how those efforts are going. The other thing that we have done is now in 5 communities to look at wraparound services. And we just got a grant that is placing 52 counselors, social workers, mental health counselors in the schools. And I think soon the opportunities with the university in the schools across the rural Vermont is huge for us. And I'm working with some funders right now and donors who are very interested in our efforts in mental health as well as integrative health coaching. My goal would be, you know, training the teachers have these integrative skills and ways of coming to UVM and knowing that there's multiple pathways to achieve what you want.
We could have Jay Jacobs who came and dressed you up. And two other colleagues with him from DTSU and CCV.
We would welcome that trio back.
I'll arrange.
Yeah, they've been very active.
Yeah, they're working
and
together.
yes. And we'll be able to update you on how we're doing with our nursing consortium. And then, like I said, my next step would be teacher education. See if we could do that.
And I think, you know, there's part of one of the many pieces of transformation under consideration is a renewed discussion about statewide high school graduation standards.
Yeah.
And that may be a powerful place for us to leverage some of our quality improvement. And I hope that can happen with some coordination between our K-12 world and higher ed. And I'm not sure, what kind of coordination is happening already with our agency of education or the state board of education, but
I think we also have a unique opportunity with the national championship of our soccer team. Thank you.
Yeah.
Today. And I found out there are actually 2 Vermonters, both Nash Barlow and Carl Daly are from Vermont, but they're doing student camps. And if you were experienced the parade on Church Street, there's young families and young people from all across the state there excited. And I think there's more opportunities for us to gather around the sports community. And also these young men are getting master's degrees or bachelor's degrees in a variety of areas so that they can see these are scholar athletes who actually are driven, are leaders, give back to the community, but also are doing well and graduating and contributing to the community, which I think we can build on that with some of our other sports teams as well.
Any other questions before I ask a final question? Just a final question, then that would be the Cancer Center Initiative and the $5 million ask over 5 years. Does that proposal kind of live or die based on the state appropriation?
I think one of the challenges that we have faced is that when we don't demonstrate support from the state for a national effort, they're always going to hold back. So NCI designation expects that, okay, we're going to give you access to greater dollars, but what is your community impact and how are you engaging your state in the effort to improve rural health care for cancer? And I think one of the things that we also want to think about is, as we look at all the challenges in healthcare costs, if we can start addressing some of the challenges in rural communities and support issues around obesity, some of the health things that I was talking about, planetary health, in terms of access to healthcare when your things are flooded, access to forest and experiences. We know that those things do decrease cancer, access to healthy eating, access to nature, all of those things, certainly you come to it, as a health professional, we all bring something to the table, but that, environmental interaction and the opportunities for access to care early is really important. So I think the funding agencies, they look to see how are you invested in this, because if we're going to fund you, we want to make sure that this is a sustainable model.
Maybe if you could send us out the proposal, but just sort of where the state contribution would fit.
Sure.
Where it fits in the strategy of leveraging other dollars, that would be very helpful.
Yeah, that would be great.
And just last one, what is the status of the UVM president search? When does it conclude?
Yeah, I figured you might ask. So, as you know, it's a confidential process. It's, I suspect that we'll know in a couple of weeks.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate your time this morning.
Thank you again for your service to the community.
All right, Higher Education Day continues. Beth, would you like to join us?
yes.
Charlie joining as well?
Yes.
Obviously, welcome. Thank you.
Yeah, good to see you. Good to see
And
you.
Ms. Kayla Doody.
No,
Right. Screen sharing. All right, well, we go from university to the university. We have representatives here from our Vermont State University and presentation. Why don't you just go right ahead and introduce yourselves and dive right in.
Okay, thank you. I'm Beth Mouth. For the record, I'm the Chancellor of the Vermont State Colleges System. And I have here with me Sharon Scott, who is our Chief Financial and Operating Officer, we appreciate an opportunity to be here today. Thank you, Chair Conlon, for agreeing to meet with us. I'm just going to start with a little overview of the system. I know many of you are new, and so you understand that, and then Sharon will jump in with a overview of our budget. So the Vermont State the Vermont State Colleges system is actually comprised of two institutions. It is Vermont State University, whose president is Dave Berg, and the Community College of Vermont is Joyce Judy. These two institutions have both centers and campuses throughout the state, from Bennington to Montpelier to Linden to St. Albans, and frankly, everywhere in between. We really are embedded in the rural communities of Vermont, and we have more than 850 employees who are citizens in these little towns, and we're very proud to really be ingrained in the towns of Vermont. I'm the chancellor of the Vermont State Colleges system, and I usually get the question, what is a chancellor? So the chancellor's role is to really take these two institutions. You can maybe think of me as the CEO of a large corporation with multiple divisions, the divisions being the Community College of Vermont and Vermont State University. And we really look to try to align the needs of the state so that we are able to meet those needs from the beginning to the end of a student's career. You just heard from President Prelock about the nursing collaborative. We really start with folks who are in hospitals who are interested in becoming a nurse, and they can do stackable credentials all the way up to a Bachelor of Science in Nursing program. So we are coordinating those kinds of efforts to ensure that we're meeting the needs of Vermonters. And without a chancellor, we really lose that ability to coordinate strategy on behalf of the state as it applies to higher education. I want to express my thanks to this body. The legislature really has assisted the Vermont State Colleges system in and supported us for many, many years. So the Vermont State Colleges system was founded actually by the legislature, established by the legislature for the benefit of Vermont. And that is our mission statement. It is a mission that I have taken to heart and really have focused upon. So what does it mean to be for the benefit of Vermont? It means that we believe that every Vermonter should have access to high quality higher education, regardless of their income or location. And in addition to that, it means that we know that we have to continually evolve to develop workforce needs to grow the economy of Vermont, and to also be prepared to help learners at every stage of their life be prepared for today's opportunities to get a great job once they've left us, and to really think of us as a lifelong partner where they have opportunities throughout their lives to come in and out of our system. Now, let me take you back to not that many years ago. The Vermont State Colleges system was in dire financial straits. We had about 8 days of cash on hand. And frankly, that was one of the big indicators that showed us that the structural system that we were living in was not sustainable. The legislature stepped in, we formed a select committee, and we have been working through that process ever since. And, you know, I really am here today to say that we have a lot of good news to share with you. We are turning a corner, and we're very excited about what it is we're going to be able to do for Vermont and are currently doing. And we do have the legislature to thank for that, because you have been hand-in-hand partners with us these many years. And honestly, I am personally excited. I've been here a little bit over a year now. My family moved to Cornwall. We have enjoyed living in Vermont, but I'm also really proud and honored to be leading this system right now. I see every day the impact we're having on Vermonters' lives, and it is something that I'm just so excited to figure out, okay, how can we all work together to ensure that we continue to meet the needs of all Vermonters? So how is state investment driving change? I want to just talk a little bit about what our students look like and what their challenges and opportunities are today. So nationally, and the Vermont numbers are very similar to this, nationally, about 70% of students are actually part-time students, and the average age of a part-time student is 27. And even for students who are full-time, the average is about 22. So students are older than what we are normally expecting. They are looking for flexible delivery options. They are now not just going to college and doing that exclusively. They have a life, they have families, they have obligations. And so they want there to be a case that they're having this opportunity to fit their education in with what they are doing in their life. And they're very concerned about how they're going to pay for a college education. They're not worried about the student debt load that they might have when they graduate. They're trying to figure out how it is they're going to pay for college next semester. So right now we have students who might be in our system. They're not sure how they're going to pay for the fall. And that is something that is always on our minds to ensure that we are thinking about the needs of our students and our future students. So what are some things that we have been doing? Because we are a system, we have been able to leverage the power of that system. One of the things we've done is a student, whether they're at the Community College of Vermont or Vermont State University, have an opportunity to go to any one of our campus locations or take a course online at any one of our centers or any one of our campus locations or online. We have increased the number of online offerings that we have for students, and we are continuing to develop those to make sure that they are meeting the needs of our students. The tuition at VTSU was cut a couple of years ago, so we would have students who would see that they actually could afford to go to college. And the 802 Opportunity Grant has been a real help to the Community College of Vermont. So that is the program where if your family makes $75,000 or less a year, you know you can go to college for free. It's affordable and it's easy to understand. And let me just tell you that 69% of those students are 25 years of age, and 73% of those students are the first in their family to go to college. So it's just a tremendous program, but there you can see that even in Vermont, we're seeing the same kinds of statistics that they're seeing nationally on demographics. And lastly, we have been working to develop career-aligned programs for students so that, as I said, we know that they can get a really great job either as they're working on their degree or once they've left us. These are the necessary changes that we have made for long-term viability of this system, and they are starting to work. So how do I know that? I have great news for you, especially on our enrollment and workforce impact. This past year, we graduated 2,000 students. We served 10,000 students in degree-seeking programs and another 7,000 students in workforce impact programs. And 80% of those people were Vermonters. And this year, starting in the fall of 2024, the Vermont State University saw a 14% increase in the number of new students that it had. And we are looking at double-digit increases for next year as well. We're still early in the process, but our enrollment numbers are looking very strong. It is showing that what we have done, the cuts we have made, the impacts that we have tried to have really are working. And again, we have you to thank for all of this that we've been able to do. So once again, I'll remind us that the Vermont State Colleges system was established by the legislature for the benefit of Vermont. And then again, to get to that vision of what does that mean? It means that we believe that every Vermonter, regardless of their income or location, should have access to high quality higher education. And that we have to ensure that we are developing workforce programs and helping to grow the economy of Vermont and meeting students where they are at every age of their life so that they can get a great job and are ready for the opportunities of today. And I do have a vision for what are some of the parts of this program that we really need to be looking at. The first part of that really is this online growth vision. We are seeing increases in students who really are desiring to have online or hybrid options, which our faculty have already been delivering for us and doing so in really unique ways. I sat in a faculty member's classroom last semester, and he had some students in class and some were online. And one of the students said, you know, I'm normally an in-class student, but I'm sick today, but I can still come to class. I mean, even those kinds of modifications are things that we are doing, and I'm so proud of our faculty for doing. I know we need to have seamless transfer pathways from CCV to VTSU. We have started to have some, but really to ensure that any student who shows up on our campuses knows that they have this path to getting either certificates, to associate's degrees, to bachelor's degrees, and they can ladder these credentials throughout their lives. We've got to be looking more at apprenticeship type models, whatever we'd like to call them, because students of today, as I said, are looking to earn while they learn. They want to ensure that they are actually doing the work and hands-on work as they are learning how to do some of the more advanced skills that they need. And finally, we need to have a housing transformation. If we know that our students are on average 27 years of age and they have families and they have a lot of obligations outside of the classroom, then we know that we have to start looking at the kinds of housing that we know our students want in the form of apartment style housing where they can be 12-month residents and can really look to become ingrained in these rural communities where we have our campuses. You know, I'm here today to tell you that our future is not going to look like our past, but just think of all of the greatness that we're going to be able to envision and imagine and actually realize for this state in having these programs that are more online, that are seamless pathways to transfer, that are looking at apprenticeships and have housing options for students that they are looking for. And I'm just so very excited for our future. So I can take questions now, or I can pass this on to our CFO.
Why don't we do, if there are any policy questions, just following up on what you just talked about. You're proposing to sort of transition to, among the offerings, having apartments that are 12-month residential system. Is that a growing trend across the country? Is that new and innovative?
You know, it's certainly something that we have just looked at because we know we have students who are desiring this. The idea actually comes from me from right here in Vermont. We have houses, we have an apartment complex on the Johnson campus where students and community members, mostly in the form of our faculty right now, live in the apartments up there. And so it's actually a concept from right here. So certainly around the country, we're seeing this, but this is a model that we know will work in Vermont.
I think especially given, I assume that you have a dormitory surplus.
Yes. Yeah.
Excuse me. Anybody else before we go into the budget? Why don't we dive right in now?
Right. So for the record, my name is Sharon Scott. I'm the Chief Financial and Operating Officer for the Vermont State Colleges. I've been with the VSC since 2003 and in 2020, and then taking over shortly after the pandemic occurred. I have very deep roots here in Vermont. I'm a native Vermonter, and I'm the daughter of a milkman and a first-generation college student. My parents believed very strongly in higher education's ability to be able to give people great opportunities. So I really see the Vermont State Colleges and my work here as a passion and a mission, not just the job that I do. As Chancellor Mauck said, in 2020, we were in some very dark times. We had about 8 days of cash on hand, and it was very, very real as to whether we were going to be able to make payroll. Under the leadership of the legislature, together with this committee and the Appropriations Committee, we created a new path forward. That path, with the guidance of the Select Committee on the Future of Public Higher Education, required us to take action to create a financially sustainable future. And to do so, we were really asked to reduce our structural deficit over 5 years through actions that were both challenging and necessary. And in exchange, the legislature agreed to increase the system's base appropriation and provide the bridge funding that was necessary for us to continue to operate while we were making these necessary adjustments. And I'm very proud of what we've been able to accomplish in that time. We've lowered our expenses, we've built up our reserves, and so that we can weather a rainy day. And we've developed a very bright future. The legislature has been an incredible supporter and partner with us throughout this entire process. And while we aren't out of the woods yet, I can say that I can see the edge of the woods for the very first time. And that is truly exciting. And for those of you who have been here for the last 4 years, you know that those are words I have not said. So quite literally, we have you to thank for where we are today. And I'm completely appreciative. I just want to take a couple of minutes to give you a little bit of background on the Vermont State College's budget. You've made an enormous change to our base appropriation, and it has been incredibly meaningful. In FY20, we had a base appropriation of $30.5 million, and this was equivalent to about 17% of our total revenues. As of FY24, the most recently completed fiscal year, we have $50.9 million in general fund, or sorry, FY25, and our appropriation is estimated at 26% of our total revenues. This increase was outlined in the Select Committee's report, and it was an essential building block to financial sustainability. The funds are used to support both the community college and Vermont State University, their ongoing operations, and they also directly support the Vermont Manufacturing Extension Center. Without these funds, these institutions would not be able to offer statewide rural higher education, which is so incredibly important to the state.
I just want to interrupt you. It also moved Vermont from being 49th in the state contribution to their state college system to somewhere in the middle, still probably down toward the bottom, but
Still towards the bottom.
Yeah.
Still towards the bottom.
but
it
at
has
least we're a
been-
little further spaced than New Hampshire now.
We have a little more space from New Hampshire, who was our closest competitor for quite a while. Unsurprisingly, from an expense structure, the vast majority of our spending, most importantly, are people, our faculty and our staff who work every day with our students in the classroom, on our campuses, and online. And last year, 57% of all payments were made to our faculty and staff. This is down from FY20, where about 63% of all of our expenses were to faculty and staff, salary and benefits. This was, again, another essential building block on the path towards financial sustainability. We found ways to streamline and consolidate our work and to build more efficient processes. The result is that in FY24, the most recently concluded year, our salary and wages that we expended was actually almost $11 million less than what we did in FY20. And that is including all of the salary increases and benefit increases. So while it might not seem like a lot, it was a 9% difference. So it's 9% lower, including all of the wage and benefit changes that we have made for our contractually obligated salaries and benefits. This work hasn't been easy, but it has been worth it. And I'm very proud of what our faculty and staff have been able to accomplish these last few years. And every day they make us a success. It is as a team that we are able to do it. In terms of our general fund request, or our base operations request, during the last legislative session in Act 113, we decreased the financial sustainability or the structural deficit by $3 million to $22 million. With this change, the legislature increased the VSC's FY25 base appropriation by $1.5 million over and above the normal increase that would have been assigned to us as a first initial installment towards addressing that difference in the structural deficit of $3 million. So with this in mind, the Vermont State Colleges are requesting a 3% base increase consistent with the governor's budget recommendation, plus an additional 1.5 million. So the total is 5.9% if you look at it base year over year, but it is in two parts that we are looking at it, a 3% base increase plus the 1.5 million. This is necessary to address this difference from Act 113 and the structural deficit from 25 million to $22 million. We are also requesting $5 million in bridge funding for FY26. And this is consistent with what we've been talking about with you here in the legislature since 2021. So as shown here on this slide, the governor has recommended $52.5 million in general fund plus $5 million in bridge funding and $1 million for CCV's tuition advantage program. I do also want to mention that over the last few years, the VSC students have seen incredible success with the critical occupation scholarships that were funded by the legislature. Those scholarships, funded with ARPA dollars largely, were hugely beneficial to our students and our ability to be able to rapidly increase the number of students graduating in health professions, early childhood education, and similar fields that were in high demand and need here in the state of Vermont. Those funds, sadly, are fully expended as of the end of this past fall. And we did not make a request, nor is there one in the governor's budget here.
but it did make a really significant impact on our ability to be able to educate students these last few years. Lastly, I just want to take a quick note of our capital budget. We're committed, just as we should be in terms of looking at alternative funding sources for capital wherever possible. And this past year, we self-funded about $2.5 million in deferred maintenance from our own funds and added an additional $600,000 to one of our other projects. In addition, we have about $12 million in congressionally designated spending for capital funds for health professions, so nursing expansion and dental hygiene expansion that we did not have to come to the legislature for. So we're really excited about our ability to be able to look at additional sources. However, self-funding and outside sources can only do so much. So we're requesting $21.5 million in capital funds for statewide major maintenance efforts, a renovation of Jeffords Hall, and the replacement of the central heating plant on the Johnson campus. These projects are really focused on life, safety, and property preservation, and they really drive at the heart of what we do, which is keeping our students safe, warm, and healthy. And as shown here, the governor has recommended $3 million for major maintenance and $5 million for the Johnson heating plant. And we know you have a lot of difficult decisions before you, not just in higher education, but everywhere for your particular committee. And we look forward to answering any questions you may have.
The capital that request that you have there, that's something that would be in our capital.
Yes.
Fund.
Yes.
Okay. I assume you'll be making a presentation to that committee as well.
Yes.
If we go back to the general fund budget request, it seems to me that the bottom line difference between the request and the governor's recommend is $500,000. Is that accurate?
In total, yes. It's $500,000 total. He has $1 million assigned to one-time funds for the tuition advantage program. It is $1.5 million in terms of appropriation.
And our sort of agreement that came out of the restructuring plan was to provide that bridge funding over 5 years, right? And what was the amount? It was $5 million per year.
It was different amounts in each year. So it's
Oh, that's right. It was
$5 million.
declining over
Right, it
time.
was declining over time. So it was $10 million in FY25 and $5 million in FY26.
So this is on in line.
This is
the bridge fund.
Yes.
And what is the status of the structural deficit? Not that I understand structural deficit. I know that that's what we were trying to address here.
Absolutely. So for this current fiscal year that we were in, we were expected to have a deficit of approximately $10 million. And that is what our budget is in line with. And we are on track for being able to hit that. In fact, we'll likely do a little bit better than that this year. And then for next year, the target is $5 million. And then it is zero after that. So, and we are on target for being able to do that. The first pass of the budget is going to our board on Monday. They've received the materials. And between the institutions and the system as a whole, we're at about $6.3 million in terms of hitting deficit for that. So we have some work to do over the next several months as we continue to prepare the budget, but we will.
It is kind of amazing that we went from literally on the brink of total collapse to, as you say, seeing the edge of the forest.
We can see it. We're not there yet, but we can see it. It's great. We really, truly would not have done it without you.
I would just say for the committee members, this was a case where we set up a commission. The commission worked independently, really, with the legislature, and really drew on the resources of other things that we are involved in, most notably the New England Board of Higher Education, which we pay significant dues to. We get a lot more back than what we pay. And they were integral in creating the restructuring plan. Any other questions? All right. Thanks very, very much.
Thank you.